Hello, 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 Dr. Barry. How are
Hello.
you? What's going
Doing
on?
good. I can't believe it's already Sunday. I don't know. Yeah,
I know it flew by, didn't it?
really did.
Very quick weekend. Thank you for coming over and taking time out of your busy schedule with work and family and dad and on your channel to talk about y'all. You already know these two cases. Where do we even start? Kouri Richins and McKenzie Sharilla. Is there anyone that you want to like start off on? Like, do you have a vibe about like where do you want to go? You take the lead.
Maybe we could start with Kouri
Okay.
because that was sentencing. Sentencing was the big thing, and I really wasn't. I was surprised and wasn't surprised. So as a mother, it can be really hard to see how somebody could hear a statement like that or statements like that from their children and then say the words that she said. Because knowing that they were afraid that one day she would come and get them and take them away, in her statement, she's like, I'm coming. And that's just the lack of insight. She's going to do what she wants to do. She doesn't care what anybody else thinks. I heard that her lawyer, I think it was Ramos, that helped her get it down. It was longer, and he helped her get it down to, I guess, 30 minutes, but it still ended up being 40. But wow, I wonder if she'll release the unredacted like Sarah Boone did.
I was gonna say I would pay good money to get the original version that she was like, "Hey, this is what I'm thinking about saying. Y'all take a look at it," because you know it was turned up. Like if that what we heard was so bad, so you know, like whatever they whittled down was 10 times worse.
Exactly. Exactly. Do you have any questions for me about that one, or have you had any questions on your channel?
So yeah, so a couple of things on that one. So in like what your insights are, et cetera, et cetera. So when we were watching it, and she began to go into that whole thing where she was like talking to the children, but there's like two versions. There was the first version where you thought it could maybe be like a this is it, like this is her moment to say her last words, but then it took this turn and it was almost like she was projecting what she felt like was done to her onto her kids. And to me, it was like presenting this scary world where she's like, there's going to always be somebody to tear you down and blah, blah. And I'm like, what a horrible world to like, you know, tell your kids whatever. Do you have any insights into like that took place?
I think that was her making herself the victim again and kind of telling the courts, you've passed this trauma on to the children, not like what I did, passed on this major trauma to the children, but her being like, the world is big and scary. And uh, it broke my heart hearing that the kids were in foster care for a period of time because they were afraid of the Richins because of some of the things Kouri had said to them. That wasn't during the sentencing. I think that was in the state's uh, whatever motion they filed pre sentencing, and it was really really difficult because she doesn't center the children at all. Ooh, I watched Josh Johnson, he did a special on HBO, and he said there are parents and people who have children. And based on what I've seen, Kouri is a person that has children. Nothing about her screams parent to me, based on what I've seen of her behavior and how she handled things, how she even spoke to the children. Because once again, I don't think it was her trying to see their perspective. I think it was her trying to say, look at how bad everybody's treating me. Everybody's keeping me away from you. But I'm the one that really loves you. Everybody else is lying to you. I'm the one that has the truth. It's just so, so painful to see.
That's such a great way to break that down, like people who parents and people who have children or whatever. And I totally agree. It's interesting and sad all at the same time to watch the dynamic of this lack of, and I don't know, it's even like a warm fuzzy, like something you almost anticipate out of a parent, out of a mother, out of a father, whatever. And it doesn't seem to be there like at all. Like it's just this wall with her.
But I
And it's
really
wild.
didn't hear nurturing from her mother either.
Mm-mm.
So her mother seemed
Yeah,
mad.
talk on that right there of like the trajectory of like, you know, her relationship, what we've seen of it with her mother, and then what we see of her to her kids, because you can almost see the generational aspect taking place in real time.
And I think Kouri desperately didn't want to be like her mother. She didn't want to be a gambler. She didn't want to put her children's lives at risk or like their welfare. I think Kouri was very much about money and really wanted her fear was that if she ever did leave Eric, that the children, that he would have money and the children would want that. But I think she's seeing it from her perspective and not looking at, well, how much time are you actually spending with them? Do you prioritize your boyfriends over their games and going to their events and doing things with them? And so she really externalizes blame that everybody, oh, poor me, this causes everything to happen to me, and doesn't really take responsibility for like there's something I could do different. And as far as the nurturing, there are lots of people that think that maybe Kouri's mom wasn't surprised, and I don't know. So I can't speak to whether she was surprised when she got there or not, but I can tell you on the police body cam, she did not comfort or console her daughter or the children at all. She just said Kouri's over there losing, but like face up, no tears, hands over her face, and she's just sitting at the other end of the couch. Like there's a whole large couch cushion in between them, and she's just sitting there.
That part was so weird.
If I just watched the video, I would have assumed they were at the airport and that was a stranger.
Mm-hmm. Literally. What's your take on the brother who spoke like in person at the sentencing hearing? Because my vibe, and I'm curious like what you're taking, like the vibe and all that is on, that was the most emotion I saw from Kouri. Like that, she's blubbering. And I'm like, interesting that she didn't do that at any other, or she pretended to, I felt. What's your take?
So she was crying for herself because he was speaking on her behalf and saying all the things that she wanted to hear. And he was blaming the state. Like he was taking on this role of, oh, poor Kouri. And as she's crying, she's looking back at the judge. So Emily D. Baker caught that she was like, like she kept looking at Judge Cranick to see. And it's my understanding he was up there writing a sonnet. I don't know. He was up there writing, like, I don't think he was giving any type of reaction or anything like that. And I don't think those words moved him at all. And so, yeah. And when I mentioned Josh Johnson earlier, yes, the comedian, that's who I saw a question about that. That was the comedian. But for the brother, I think she was crying for herself. And I think she can only cry for herself because I don't know her children and my heart broke for them hearing those words. One time my son said, like, I don't feel loved or something. Like, 'cause I was making him go to bed and he didn't want to go to bed. And it was like, you don't love me. And that like broke. And so I sat down with him and I was like, hey, buddy, tell, like, we talked about it. He still had to go to bed. But even if what you're saying, even if you don't agree with it, you don't just say, no, that's not true. Like, and just completely dismiss every single word of it.
That's wild. Yeah. I mean, it's just watching the sentencing. Also, I felt like there was a different
Judge
version
M.
of
I'm sorry. I said Cranick. Judge M. My bad.
It's all good.
I'm on Sarah in my head. Yes, Judge M. The chat is amazing. Judge M. Yes.
I felt like there was a level. I think she was also nervous. I think there was a bit of her that maybe, I don't know if she thought she was going home necessarily, but there was almost like this, I don't know, she just seemed different. Like, I don't know. What do you think? Like, what was your vibe? Did you see any differences in her behavior? Do you think she knew she was like, what was your
To
vibe on
be
this?
so defiant during your children's statement. Do you know what I mean? So I
Mhm.
would have taken her tears maybe a little bit more seriously if she hadn't been like making all the faces during everybody else's statements, during the victim impact that the state, brought, because hers was technically character witnesses. And so for the victim impact statements if she hadn't been making all of those faces, but all of a sudden, because those tears weren't remorse. Those tears weren't, I feel bad about, I don't know, like those tears were completely for her. And I also don't know how long it had been since she had seen him in person. So I try to give people the benefit of the doubt. It's really hard with Kouri, really, really hard because it seemed like a performance again, kind of like because the tears went away fast. So once the next speaker, it wasn't like she was kind of sulky and sobby for the rest of the time. And when the judge sentenced her to life without the possibility of parole, she was just like, meh, she didn't, she just kind of, I knew it, but she didn't really she wasn't a Donna. She didn't have like a, she didn't clutch her pearls at all. She was just like, yeah, I knew it. It's rigged. And no, like it's your behavior. She at no point is showing any remorse, even in her statement, the negative comments she made about Eric, still defiling his memory and trying to smear his name all through the grass. I just can't. Her statement was really difficult to listen to because it was so long too. I might have watched it on one time speed if it was like 10, 15 minutes. It was so long. It was long.
I mean, long. What was your take on this dude? I don't know his name, but he was the one dude who spoke for her, and he was like up there blubbering. He's like some business partner, and he was up there like, this isn't the Kouri. I've known her for this long, and blah 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 blah. And anytime the camera panned over to her, she looked so disinterested in this dude. And I was just like, this is like the one person that's not your family actually saying something good about you. And she acted like she could care less. And I'm like, this is the real Kouri. Like, I almost got the vibe that he was in love with her. Because I was like, how are we this? Like, what has she done to convince this man? Because right away he just started getting emotional. I'm like, wait, who are you again? We talk every day and text every day, and I've known her. And I'm like, honey, she's not. Are you paying for her honey buns? What's going on here?
So I didn't watch all, so I skimmed through that one. I'll be honest, because I was just like, wow, because I can't relate to somebody because she owes him money. You know what I mean? So I just can't relate to speaking on somebody's behalf, and you owe me hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like I don't know how much money he lost. I didn't pay attention to any of that. But yeah, I just couldn't. It did seem like that individual, part of their emotions could have been that they feel connected. And also is there some subconscious you want her to get out so that maybe she can pay you back if there's any type of restitution? Because if she's in jail for the rest of her life, you're never going to see any of the money she owes you ever again. So, and sometimes when you've been scammed, people don't want to admit that you've been scammed, like that's why somebody that's been scammed one time, because sometimes there's some guilt about even admitting it. Sometimes they'll give the person money again. Like they'll fall for it a second time, hoping, oh no, hoping it'll be true this time. And so I didn't really take those words seriously.
She was like, she's probably sitting here telling him, like, look, we're getting out on appeal. The evidence is weak. I'm going to get you your money back. I've got this tucked away. But right now, what I need, honey buns are going for about $5 a pop in here. I need that honey bun back this Friday, $20 in my account. I got you. She's just working that honey bun money over. Right. It's just like, okay, Kouri, great. Here we go. One thing I was so happy to see in this, I mean, if you have to look at, like, I don't know if you want to call it silver linings, whatever, is that Eric's family, Katie and them, got the boys, right? Because I was just like, just from what I've seen, and again, I don't know any of these people personally. It's all I have seen is on TV with the court case, the mother, the video, like we talked about. But just based on that, if I had to be like, Paul, who do you want the kids to go to? Which of these families? It's not even a question which one I would pick. I mean, it's just not even an option. So I was like, well, thank heavens the boys didn't get caught up in like the system or with the other family, anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and because there have been some other cases that I followed where the child went to the person that did the crimes family, and it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel very good. Because also sometimes, uh 'cause I wanna as a therapist, I wanna make sure that the child is protected and doesn't continue to have contact with that parent, and when they're living with the family of the person that is charged with the crime, you don't always know if they'll keep those boundaries up. Because if Corey's mom had the boys, they would have been forced to continue to have contact with her.
And on that note too, like from like a how therapy
Mhm.
processes take place standpoint or whatever, like in situations like this, how does that work? Like, so obviously his family has the boys. So is it a scenario of like it's completely their choice if they wanna have any contact, or is it like the therapist decides? Because I mean, to me, I figure this is like almost lifelong therapy for the
Yeah.
children of when you've gone through something like this. So
Mhm.
it's like, at what point, how does the therapist, like, guide this situation and put guardrails on it?
And a therapist can only make recommendations, and the court is the one that or the whoever's the guardian, the court or the guardian is the one that has the final say. Brian Boone and the Sarah Paulson, because I don't want her to use his name. Her legal name is the same as his, but Brian Boone was so kind to continue to allow contact with their teenage son. I personally think there's a small part of the teenage son that wants that contact, because I think if he went to his dad and was like, "I never want to talk to her ever again," I don't know that Brian would continue to spend all the money on the lawyers to because I think even Brian's lawyer said we could be terminating all contact and communication with the minor child, and they weren't doing that. I've also known of cases where something like this has happened, and once the person is convicted, their parental rights are terminated. So every state does it different. I don't know how their state does it. In Virginia, just because you're incarcerated doesn't mean that you don't have parental rights. Now, you're not going to have custody. You're not going to have physical custody or anything, but you still have parental rights. I've worked with children of incarcerated parents, and if they wanted to. And I've never actually, because nobody's asked to do this, but if they wanted to participate in a session or provide me with information or anything like that, as long as their parental rights haven't been terminated, they can maintain some contact. As a therapist, I decide what's clinically best for my client. So if the child is afraid of that parent, and not based on somebody else doing parental alienation or anything like that. So not based on somebody else's words. This is based on the child's memories, based on their experiences. And the way the Richins boys talked about their memories and things that had happened, it sounded like it was from a child's perspective and not an adult's perspective. So it sounded like what a child would say to me. And so, because some people were like, "Ah, could the boys have been coached?" Because that's what Corey thinks. Corey thinks that's what happened, but I think the boys are telling the truth. And often the truth tellers end up being ostracized, or they end up being pushed off. We don't talk about Bruno because they tell the truth, and Corey doesn't want to hear that.
Prime example for adult situation, look at the Adelsons with the one brother, I can't remember his name, was it Rob?
Yep.
I feel like the oldest one who was, oh, he's terrible, and he was the most sane Adelson we ever saw and heard from, and I'm just like, "Oh." And another thing with Corey, hold on, pardon me. Another thing with Corey's children during the statements and the way they were speaking, through their spokesperson or whatever you call it, was the oldest son sounded like he was on the path or Kouri was on the path, let me say that, with him, of treating him like the ostracized one, because he was able to say, "You're drunk all the time. You're this." And you heard the things that other kids were saying. Like, he would have to be in his room. We'd have to bring him food. And I was like, oh, we've heard this story before, where the one child is like fixated on by the parent causing the abuse, whatever.
And sometimes that's the child that reminds them of the parent that they don't. So sometimes that's the one that it might look like the father. They might kind of have similar personality traits, or this is a child that's very observant. And also, because I don't know how she would have liked the age where your children are supposed to not want to please you anymore. So that preteen, teen years, your child is supposed to start connecting with their friends more. They're supposed to care more what their friends think than what their parents think. And that's where, as a parent, I just want to make sure my child has good friends, that they're connected with some good friends. Or if they're not, I want to make sure they have a safe therapist. Then I want to make sure there's a positive coach, that there's somebody speaking into my child's life when he thinks I'm full of and don't know anything.
Right.
When me and the therapist could say the exact same thing, and he's like, "Mom, Miss so like she had the best idea," and I just have to sit and smile and not be like, "I said the exact same thing." Yeah, because you can't say I told you so. Like I just have to be like, "Okay, mhm."
Sure. Yeah, that has to be so tough as a parent. I mean, I don't have kids, four-legged dogs or whatever, but I can't imagine that part, because I can remember being that way with my parents, being like, "Y'all don't know, whatever," but so and so down the street who, whatever. Guess what? They're a genius. Guess what they said today?
Mhm.
You stick your hand in the fire, you're going to get burned. Really?
Don't say.
Groundbreaking. you know I tell you what. Yeah, I just, what a heartbreaking case that was all around. I feel so sorry for those boys, the things they were describing. And like you said, it sounded like a child, because the way some of the thought processes and the things that they went in on and focused on that were big to them, like the memories of "you did blank." And to me, the vibe I got is, I was like, this is going back before. This sounded like their whole life with her.
Yeah.
Right? Not just after. It sounded like it got worse after she killed
'Cause
Eric, but the whole time.
nobody's gonna tell them to bring up the lasagna. The lasagna probably hurt her feelings. Do you know what I mean? But, like, nobody told them to bring up, like, to me, if you're being coached, they're gonna be like, "You were focused on the money and the houses and the rental." They're gonna say things. It's like, "Wait a minute, what child really focused on that?" But yeah, the lasagna, "You fed me something and I got sick, and now you're suspected of having unalived my dad. Were you trying to do something to me?" And them not knowing the answer to that question is really, really heartbreaking. And because she'll never tell them for sure.
Mm-mm. Well, one thing I think about, and like, however your experience was with your parents and anyone out there listening, whatever, but like my experience growing up was, there's different like things in my childhood that I could name, like, say, monumentous moments of being like, oh, mom and dad are real people, like different stages of life of like, oh, they're like, they're not invincible. They don't know everything. They don't, whatever. And I think about the process of somebody like her kids and other people who are in those situations similar to this, where there's been like, murder and this kind of stuff. And I'm just like, man, the things you would question as you go through your entire life at the different generations, parts of your life and decades of your life, where it's starting from childhood, where little things of like, well, wait, why did mom do this? And then as you get the perspective of being older and being like, well, wait, now I'm mom's age when she killed dad. So I know what A, B, and C is like in life. I mean, it's a literal life sentence that she's given them, not only without Eric, but of these questions that will haunt them forever. And like you said, she's not going to tell them the truth ever. Like, not ever. If they ever have anything to do with her, I mean, they may never speak to her again.
And as a therapist, I would help a child hold space, because there may be a small, because I don't want them to completely deny. Now first they have to get through the trauma, get through all of those things. There might have been something that they miss about all being together. There might be something, and so to still be able to hold space, but they're not there to talk about the positive. But once somebody is ready to hold space for everything, because then that's a more truer experience. Because sometimes you have a crappy friend that they're good, but I really need to cut off this friend. And that's because nobody's bad all the time. And so just to recognize signs of coercive control, recognize signs that somebody is being manipulative, mean, that somebody's being a bully, to be able to see those things, I think it's good for older kids and teens to really have a good understanding of that.
Totally agree. And yeah, I do that same type thing that you're talking about where for me it's almost like I'll look at situations, whether it's like an ex or things with my, parents, where I call it like the picture book syndrome, where I'm looking, I'm like, why couldn't it be just like this picture, this snapshot in time? And I fixate on that and I had to be like, but Paul, it wasn't. You know what I mean? Like there was also A, B, and C that went on behind that.
Yeah.
And I'm not even trying to compare like a
Mm-mm.
I don't know what it's like to have these boys experience, but I'm just using my experience in that with something, like, wow, that's even more monumentous, the snapshots they'll have in life.
And if I had, let's say Eric was my client, so children do better in in two, like they need one safe space, and them all in the same house couldn't be completely safe. And so, but that would have been a big battle. And I think he didn't want to have to share custody. He didn't want, the boys to be out of which I can definitely understand that too. And because a lot of people were really concerned about the insurance policies that she held on them. I think they did say that they're going to let those go now that she is going to be incarcerated for the rest of her. I think her attorney, oh, we'll probably have to talk about that before we move on to the next one. A lot of people have a lot of big feelings about the attorneys. And really, I feel like Mr. Ramos gets thrown in to miss to the two others because while like day one, I didn't love his style, but after that, like he wasn't nearly because he wasn't joining in on the Kiki party. Like he wasn't laughing over there with them or anything like that. And so, but everybody has a different experience. Um, I think her attorneys felt passionately, and even Sky continues to support her, and that is what it is. I just it I'm somebody that works with survivors of trauma, so my heart always goes out to the children, to the surviving family. Those are the people that I often focus on.
Yeah, I agree, and I keep meaning to watch, is it Nestor who's representing the other dude in that trial going on right now?
Yeah.
I keep meaning to tune on just to see, like, what her vibe is like, and I'd love to do the same with Ramos,
Mm.
just to see because I felt like he came out super dramatic, and he maybe reeled it in after that, and they were like, "Look," and yeah, he completely was just kinda off to the side. He would be very passionate when he did speak, and in interviews and stuff, very much like, "Hey, look, this is, she's innocent, but all the things." But yet some dynamic changed after that. And he just kind of separated. And maybe he took the temperature. Maybe somebody came to him and said, look, you need to, like, number one, reel it in with drama. And you need to sit on the other side of the table from these two because this ship is a sinking.
And I think he was the junior, so I think they had seniority over him, like, in the hierarchy, I think he was at the bottom. And I think he watched YouTube. So I truly think he watched Day One a trial and was like, "Oh," and took the feedback and changed his style. For nobody else changed on that side. It was
Literally.
very interesting to see. And when I say
Yeah.
interesting, that's me being nice. That was a choice.
Well, I really feel like if lawyers watch YouTube, and surely some have to, it's instant feedback.
Mhm,
It's almost like you're getting a vibe of what potentially the jury could be thinking.
mhm.
But also, how's my style? How is this landing? I would literally, if I could, if I was an attorney, pay like an intern or somebody to scour the YouTube comment section. They didn't have to be in court at the table with me. They could be like wherever and being like, okay, this is the feedback we're getting and reporting back. And I feel like Nestor and Lewis definitely didn't do that, right? There didn't seem to be any signs of that at all.
And it kinda came, so they reminded me of Kouri a little, not in, like, the murderous but just, like, the, like, hard head, like, I'm pushing forward, I'm not taking feedback from others, like, I think they're happy with, I don't know, because I think they blame the judge, or they're just, I don't know that they took responsibility. In one of the sidebars, I think it was Miss Nestor. I'm bad with names. I think she said she didn't have her hearing aid or something. Like, it was very odd. If you haven't heard the sidebars, that was that was interesting. Or if
I
you're
need to go watch that.
if you're gonna read them, because if that's part of any requests that you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't there's that one channel I think that did them. I can't
Yeah.
remember her name. You
Yeah.
know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I need to go look at them because yeah, I can only imagine that they're just
There are 3 parts. I watch her on, like, 2 times speed, and it was hilarious. I thoroughly enjoyed
okay, I'll
it.
check it out. Okay, so on that note, so are you ready to move on to Hot Mess Express,
Yes.
second part 2, The Crash, McKenzie Sharilla? So, The Crash was a Netflix documentary that's taken I don't wanna say the nation by storm because it's or introduced a lot of people who apparently didn't know about the case, and then also people who followed it. You know, we've kind of followed this case on YouTube, if you will, for years, right? The prison phone calls to this. One thing that made me feel like, and I don't know what the word is, like, not justified, but, like, confirmed, or I don't know, was seeing it go national, like on Netflix, and literally the world come to the same conclusion that we've all been arrived at. Like, wow, there's so much going on here with the parents of McKenzie. And we did learn more in this. So before we jump in, do you have any do you like want to start off with any kind of like thing with that, like a bland, let's start here, Paul, and then go?
And for anybody watching, so I did a video over on my channel, really focusing. I wanted to focus a little bit more on Dominic. And so my analysis didn't really talk about McKenzie as much because I just didn't like, I just really wanted to talk about Dominic and Davion. And so here we are going to talk more about McKenzie and just some of my general thoughts. I'm not her psychologist, so I can't diagnose anybody, but and at the same time, there's so many themes that pop out as you're watching that show. It is emotional, and so if you haven't watched the series, prepare yourself because they do play the just some video, because that sound that Davion's father said that he just can't get out of his head. And then a lot of people point out, that Mackenzie's dad is wearing a shirt that I guess it's like it's a comic book shirt, but it says boom. And it's like, are we like, why? And there's not a good answer to any of those questions. So
It was so yeah, the tone deafness of that on top of just the words coming out of their mouth. And yeah, on that note that you mentioned, like one of the things that stuck out, like let's just say about the documentary, like that version of it, was a lot of the body cam footage that I hadn't seen. Um, and that sound, it gave me goosebumps when you mentioned that because I can even hear it now, right? And that's just me watching the documentary, not even being personally involved in it or whatever. And imagining the police showing up to that horrific scene, that you can tell the trauma in their voices, realizing like, oh my gosh, there's people in here, and probably shocked that one of them's even alive. It was so, I mean, that car wreck was horrifying. And I think one of the things that really resonates with a lot of people in it, pardon me, it's almost like two things. Like number one, the tragedy, right? And then when you see Mackenzie's attitude, which is kind of odd in general, and there's two versions. There's a version of people who don't know about it but just saw the doc, and then she comes out and speaks. And then there's people like we followed it, we listened to her phone calls. But then when the parents come on, and immediately where I was like, okay, they're still just, heels in the sand. Like, because in my opinion, I'm just like, if their end goal is to get their daughter out of prison, because technically she could get out, whatever. Yeah, it's like y'all are going to keep her in there longer than she ever would stay. And here's my thing too, where I'm like, the courts and parole are going to want to be like, who's your support system? What's this? And if that's what they're seeing as her support system, oh, honey, they ain't letting her out at all, ever. You know, it's just so what do you have to say, like through your lens of when you see like a relationship like this, the dynamics of the parents where it's just like, oh, she can do no wrong. She didn't do this. She's the victim. Bah, 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 bah.
The thing that stuck out to me was the father saying that he knew when she was lying, and that she would be in the office at the high school. Probably She's probably said that she was being disrespectful, or she probably did or said something, and he would just look at her and say, "Did you do it?" And she would be like, "No." And he'd be like, "Let's go." And he completely believed her. And she, first of all, her perception of disrespectful, I don't trust it. Because she might have been like, I told her she was a worthless bitch. And I could have said it worse. Like, I don't trust her idea of what was and was not respectful. And so I just was, it was painful because you can see how they seem to continue to enable her. And I don't know if she'll ever take responsibility because nobody is holding her feet to the fire, because there are people that support her no matter what. Now that does keep her in there longer, because she could be out in 15 years if she could work on herself, show some remorse, have a change in attitude, but I don't know that she's going to do that. She wants the world to change, and she didn't do anything wrong. And ma'am, you did. You really did. I don't believe her that she had a medical emergency. Somebody pointed out, I guess at one point, I guess I don't know if it was she asked her mom, should I say it was a seizure or something? Like, before they even got to the POTS thing, she supposedly made that comment. And now somebody can grow up with permissive parents and not end up like McKenzie. Somebody can grow up with very strict parents and end up like so I'm not saying that her parents caused. I'm just saying there were no guardrails, and children need guardrails. They need boundaries. The dad tried to say in his follow-up interview with TMC that he didn't know that she was smoking while she drove. But I think that was to save his job. He talks a lot. And
That yeah, so that interview right there, and this is my opinion too, when he's when he was like, how am I to know what she's doing or whatever? My first thought was, I was like, have you this tells me also he pays no attention to her social media because it's nothing but her smoking up, driving, like wherever she's at home, friends. So I'm like, okay, now do I expect a parent to be policing their kid? Kind of, sort of in this way a little bit, where I'm like, you're not even glancing at her social media, like, because it's very obvious what she's doing. And so it just made it worse. I mean, he got put on leave for it, right? Now, you also said something, and hold on, like, let me grab my thoughts here because there's so many going through with all the stuff you just said. With the dad, with the TMZ thing, what was I gonna say or ask you? With the parents. I don't know, it'll come back to me. Oh, that's what it was, hold on. So, Phil for Dom Russo, "Hey, how's it going?" They were just saying how, Christine's gonna be going live later tonight. So,
cool.
Dom's sister, Christine, has her own podcast, she's been making the rounds. I was listening to her interview with Jesse Weber today when I was driving, literally blubbering down the road because, like, it put Dom and Davian and everybody else, whatever, into such a human perspective, and her talking about life. And she was 13 when he was born, she changed his diapers,
Yeah.
and just, and at one point when Jesse's asking her, like, tell us about Dom and all that, I mean, she's like, I can't, she starts crying, she's like, I have to stop talking for a little bit.
I
It was
watched that one
so
too. It was
heartbreaking.
on, I think it was on Court TV. I think, or no, Law and Crime. It was on, was that the one that was on Law and
I think
Crime?
Jesse's Law and Crime.
Jesse,
I
yeah,
can't remember with
yeah,
the shakeup recently, but it's
yeah,
Jesse Weber and,
yeah,
Christine Russo, if you Google it or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
It was good. She's been doing a whole bunch of rounds or whatever, and,
Mhm.
really just rounded that out. And for me, I think one thing that it makes me feel personally, and again, I don't know these people, so I don't have emotional connection to them in the way if it was my family or a friend, but other than like empathy, let's say, of like, oh my gosh. But watching it, I feel like when I see McKenzie talking the way she is, or her mom, doing the modeling thing in the comments 2 days after she's killed them, and I'm just like, so are these boys just garbage to you? Like, you just literally zero care, like, oh, it's a new day. Because Dom's sister was saying that it turns out she's hours after this in the hospital doing TikToks. almost just like here, like, okay, we're already moved on. And
So
it's just, I can't imagine being related to them and that, being a loved one and seeing that behavior.
I don't think
That's
she
what they
really
would
loved him. So I don't like when people talk about, you know, because that was control, that was like verbal harm. She tried to control where he went, who he was with. And even if a person has a history of, because she tried to say that he cheated early in their relationship, and I don't know what she meant by that, because I don't know if that was talking to another. I don't know what that meant, but that was because I think they were dating for 4 years, and so the whole thing was just very, very sad. And, I did watch, Spidey with behavior arts. He, did some analysis or whatever, and he mentioned seeing some contempt in her face as she talked about Dom. I don't think she liked him, and even in the Netflix documentary, when asked when she was asked about her communication style, she brings up, "Oh, he was a bad communicator. Oh, I was sad. Oh, when we would argue, I was sad and he didn't know how to communicate." Ma'am, we have videos. We can see the messages. What? Like, so it's just and so I think a lot of her videos and the things that she puts out there is what she wants the world to see. And I think there's something a lot darker in inside. Uh, because with Sarah Boone, I don't think that she meant for George to die, but I think she wanted to continue to have I think her intention was not good. I think Mackenzie, I think she thought she would get away with it. And I don't know that for sure. This is just pure speculation. I think she thought, oh, you know, if she survived, because I don't know, like, because I don't know if she ever thought she would survive that.
Yeah, and I go so now on a completely speculative note here, because I go back and forth on this,
Mhm.
right? Of the, do I think she planned out, I'm going to do this, we're wrecking into this building, or was it they left the house and something happened that made her go from, she flipped out, some argument, and all of a sudden it was, I'm gonna wreck this car, like that. Like, I think there was intention, but was she planning it like a pre-plan, like 2 days before, doing like, I can go this way and do it? Because I'm so afraid of cars. I talked about this recently with this case. My dad was a mechanic. He taught me these cars are made with your death in mind. So you always have to remember that. That is what, like, you just, this will kill you. And so to me, I'm just like, and I've been in car wrecks, they're horrible. So I'm like, I would not expect to live going 100 miles an hour crashing into something. But again, these are she's a kid, like, that might be like not even thinking past that. Do you have any like thought process on any, like, have you gone down that rabbit hole at all?
A little bit. So I think he was trying to leave. He was trying to get her out of his place. I think he was seeing that it was toxic. And I think she was using him for his money. That's where I don't think she really cared about him. I think she liked the idea of being, because I think a lot of people wanted to be with him, or I think she liked the status of it, but I don't think she actually liked him. And it's just really hard, because to hear different things. She's described as kind of a mean girl, and I did watch, I think, was it on some channel, some streaming platform has, it's like Mean Girls Locked Up or something like that, and it was season 2, episode 7. Because I watched her episode, and they dig deeper into other people's perceptions of her, and that she was always talking about people, that her group would, spread rumors, and that she was constantly talking about other people. I think she was easily jealous, and I think she prioritized her happiness over everybody else's.
Yep, I agree. Kind of gives me the vibes of like Courtney Clenny. probably
Mhm.
behind the scenes. Just a little bit of the evidence that I've seen of, like, or even from the crash, the documentary where they're showing, recordings from him calling his mom and, like, she's going, "Yeah, let me in the house and do this," and Christine, his sister, was saying that, you know, basically she presented, meaning McKenzie presented, a very different personality to everybody else. It was not they were not privy to what she was like behind closed doors, but began to see that and whatnot. And I think oftentimes, look at all these cases we've covered recently of the woman trying to leave the man in a domestic situation, and this is clearly the worst thing. And then, this stuff happens. And then looking at it through that lens of, but it's the reverse of, like, from what I hear, yeah, he was trying to leave her,
Yeah.
but it was not going well. And that's could be definitely what triggered her off.
And when a man is the victim of DV, there can be some shame about coming forward. Because imagine him reporting her to the police. Because I think he was like 6'5", she's like 5'2". I don't like she's little, but she was mean, and she was screaming, yelling, threatening to key his car. Like, she was not being safe. And also, I don't know if it woulda got sticky. I don't know their state and how him being 20, her being 17. I don't know. I don't know if that would have caused, now she was about to be 18 very, very soon, but, I don't know if that could have ever caused any reason why he never called. Um, because based on the video he recorded with her threatening to bust down his door, that she's counting, and saying, like, "Don't let me get to 5," or whatever it was. She just was extremely just emotionally immature and would have these tantrums, these escalations, and that's where that day, I don't and if I was Davion's family, because I think the real issue was between Dom and her, and now but, like, and I think Davion was just, I don't and then for her to not care that there's an innocent person that can get harmed too. There's a part of me that wonders what those last moments, um, for them were like, because they talked about the car going into neutral, the car, like the steering wheel. So there's some speculation that possibly the boys were fighting for their lives, because a lot of people talk about why their seatbelts weren't on. But that's where I wonder if they were thinking about jumping out or something. Like, if they were trying to get to safety and they just weren't able to. I do think that Davion, unfortunately, him being injured, because I think that's how he got into that crowd. Once he got injured and couldn't play football anymore, and might have had some feelings about that. I think that's how he ended up in that crowd. But contrasting Dominic's parents and Davion's parents and Mackenzie's parents, it's night and day. Night and day.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And listening to the story of Davion,
Mhm.
with his dad, in the documentary saying that, and, it really just made me think, like, wow, look at how life can change so fast. Like, he's going like, I'm gonna do football, I'm gonna do this, and this one thing out of his control, you get hurt. And then, his dad said, I'll show you your future if you show me your friends, or something like that. And because her, like, if you listening to, what's her name? Mackenzie's mom in the jail phone call, she's like, "Well, you're just hanging out with the wrong crowd." But it's like she was the wrong
Exactly.
Mackenzie was the wrong crowd, right? And so, Davion's dad is saying the same thing where it's like, "Would my son still be here, had he not been hanging out with this crowd?" And not in Mackenzie's car, whatever. And of course, that I'm sure that question will haunt many people the rest of their lives, whatever. But yeah, my heart just broke for Davion. I mean, obviously in obvious ways, but especially with that, where I was just like, wow, like dashed dreams that were just out of his control for that. And then, yeah, those last moments, like you said, and again, like, obviously, I don't know either, but I just feel like, yeah, there was that moment of panic where they were probably I could see Davion probably reaching up in the seat
Yeah.
trying to grab something. Dom over there, that's probably how the boys ended up in the final positions that they were in.
Yep.
It's, because it happened so fast. And I've heard other people talking about the she never wears talking about Mackenzie, She never wears her seatbelt in any of these photos, but for this time, she had her seatbelt on, and it does that. That's where I wonder, like, okay, how much forethought did she put into that whole situation, or was it just, you know, happened to be that? Christine said that she went and drove that the road at like 40 miles an hour. She was like, even going 40, you had to have both hands on the wheel and going, right? So she's like 100. Oh no, especially in the whole concept or whole idea of, well, I blacked out and I didn't. You can even look at the road and tell, like, there's no way your car would have veered off at, some point, right? It wouldn't have gone in the way that she did.
Yeah, yeah, and I think because there was a Phil for Dom Russo that is in the chat, and so the chat was communicating and just thanked us for this coverage. I really like trying to talk about prevention because sometimes I think men also need to know warning signs of an unsafe relationship and then how to get safe, because often domestic violence resources are geared towards women and they're not always geared toward men. And women can use, we've covered it with true crime. They can use poison, they can use all types of different things that a woman can be unsafe to. And so that's why, and there can't just be this shame, because sometimes the police don't even respond well. Where 'cause I remember with George, with some of the body cam, some of them were looking at him like, what, like she did that to you, and they're almost not even believing him. And so there can just be a lot that goes into that. And so I also like teaching people about what real love is, that real love has respect, real love has boundaries, real love is a choice where it's us both choosing to be here. I love my husband. We've been married for 13 years. If he walked in this door right now and was like, I don't want to do this anymore, I'd be like, child support and alimony. Now I'd be sad, but like I'm not gonna do crimes. Just don't do crimes. And so sometimes in the songs, in the videos that we watch, you can be like, oh, you complete me. We heal each other. And I hated when McKenzie said we healed. What was she healing in him? She was breaking him every single day. Like, I just
Oh yeah.
can't. I can't.
And on that note too about, the male female dynamic of, the roles in these kind of situations when there's toxic and, abuse going on, whatever. Again, to go back to Courtney Clenny, and what was the name of her boyfriend that she unalived?
It's African. It's really I don't it's a very unique name, and I'm not good with names.
Yeah, I'm if somebody knows, drop it. But the point that I was gonna get at is when you watch the videos of her attacking him, it's so violent and so crazy,
Yeah.
and, like, people would be like, "Oh, she had all these bruises," and it's like, even at Chris okay, thank you, yep, Christian. If, even him just trying to
Open
physically
Sally or
get her
something.
off of him, it's
Mhm.
like it's almost like she's beating herself up in that way and bruising herself or whatever, but it's like, oh, she was causing some damage, and he was a big dude. I mean, like, if he wanted to hurt her, oh, he could have, like, very quickly in, like, one punch, probably done her in.
And he didn't. To me, all he was doing was trying to protect himself. Because I remember
Mhm.
that one video where she's very drunk and she was, I think, demanding that he leave or so I don't know. It was a very odd. I haven't watched it in a while, but alcohol plus things like that are not a good combination.
Mhm.
And it just this case really breaks my heart because I think she wanted to become famous. And so I just hope that as we talk about these things that people aren't supporting her. Do you know what I mean? Like people aren't, because what she did was wrong. There's no excuse. And it was a crime, and she's exactly where she needs to be. And I don't know that she's gonna change, so she might stay there for a while.
Well, you know how, like, even, like, in a lot of these cases where somebody could have just day one started making their change or whatever, most of the time when you go up for parole, you're not gonna be getting out on that first thing, depending on what the crime is and whatnot, or what circumstances. But, like, with Mackenzie, and I forget how many years we're into her sentence at this point, where it's like, "Oh, wow," like, here whoa, okay, here we are, so we're still at day 1 with so we're not accountable. We're the victim. You know, I don't see her honestly ever getting out. And she might just end up very happy, like kind of where she's at in a sense, like just fitting right in because of it's almost like three hots in a cot, right? Where it's just like, I'm doing my thing. I'm a mean girl. I'm getting attention. I'm doing this. Everybody's taking care of stuff around me. I'm not going to change, you know.
And I
Everybody's
do
telling me that
think
I'm the one who's wronged.
her statement in the Netflix doc was very much something because she said some legalese. She said, oh, I didn't even write it down, but her like the speculation of I don't like it seemed like something a lawyer would say. Uh because she looked over at her lawyer, and I'm so glad the Netflix documentary people kept it in there where she looks over and is like, "Did I get it? Did did I say it? I'm not coming across too crazy, right? But I want to like she was trying to come off in a certain way." And so it felt like an act. I don't think any of it was genuine. Her phone calls, the things she's saying, knowing we can all listen, and the phone calls are horrible. Like the things she says there, because I think sometimes she laughs about stuff. Like she's not taking any of this seriously and she's not taking any accountability. And I do think those things will be brought before the parole board. And I saw in one of the things that I watched, Mackenzie's dad's reaction to them meeting to them interrogating her or to them because he was like, I have a lawyer for her. You know, you can't question her. He was like, sir, she's 18. He was like, but she's dumb. He was like, she's oh my
He's like,
God.
on top of that, he's like, all kids are dumb these days. And I'm just like,
And
yeah.
he's a teacher. And he's over here. Like when I found out that he was a teacher at a Catholic school, I was just like, you did what? And you said what? Like you could have your wife could have went. Because if he had just let his wife go, because even there's a time when he's saying, "Oh, I don't care that if she's gonna do something, I would rather her do the one thing." Uh, so that's the one time mom isn't nodding her head in agreement, like, "Oh yeah," like she's just over there like, "Oh, that's not a good look. You probably shouldn't have." She doesn't say that, but that's the gist of what I got from it.
Oh, yeah, and you could also yeah, so when I found out that he was a teacher in general, I was like, "Oh, what?" I was like, that was the last thing because when it was like, "Oh, he's been put on admin leave from his job," and I was like, "Well, what is he, like, some
And
kinda,
then
like, whatever?"
the TMZ interview made it look worse because the
Oh,
documentary made him kind of because they cut things up. Do you know what I mean?
mm,
Like, like the TMZ interview because he's now I interrupt all the time, but I'm not trying to save my job or I don't like he's it came off so bad.
so bad.
So
So bad. I read the transcript, so I took you know how you can take, like, a transcript from a YouTube video? I copied and pasted and read it, I think at this channel I did it on, and it was like, ee, ah, ooh, like, chitty, chitty, bang, bang. No I mean, it was so bad. I was like, because listening to it, it gave me anxiety listening to him fall all over himself. I was like, I cannot listen to this. I cannot do that. I was like, I'm
I,
gonna read the transcript to see, like, what this man is saying. It was so bad.
people that follow me know I stay at least 1.5 speed, sometimes two times. He one
Right.
time, one time speed for that interview, and it was a lot because it came across very desperate. I think he was trying to save his job, but say less. Should have consulted with a lawyer, going on TMZ, but or he's trying to save the narrative about him because I think people were calling in complaints. People were upset. People saw it. Possibly, parents of 'cause the kids might have been like, "That's my teacher," and, oh, it was so
And
bad.
he was also like when he said, well, it's about he almost like trying to figure out what the poor judgment thing was that got him put on that. And I'm like, I think they could probably say just in general, going on the Netflix thing in general before you even opened your mouth on it. Why
Because
would you do that?
to me, him not accepting the court's rule. Now, it's one thing to say we feel the got it wrong, but we still support our daughter. But they go in hard of like, there's no way we know our daughter. We know the truth. There are things y'all haven't seen. I'm like, no, there's just not. I don't believe it. I just don't. I personally don't feel that way.
And Kay Bush brings up a good point. Kay Bush says, "How are you guiding children at an educational level, but so bad with your own?" When I found out he was a teacher, that was the first thing I was like, "Well, what was his classroom like?" I mean, I'm like, a three-ring circus could have been going on in there, and he'd be like, "It's fine in here. What are you talking about? Nothing's going on in here." You know, I was just like, "What was the? I mean, how is this even?" Yeah, that him being a teacher was the last thing on my bingo card. I was shocked with that.
At a Catholic school. So maybe I could have seen him as a public school teacher, but at
Yeah.
a Catholic school, because often, and somebody in my comment said that often teachers have, like, where your conduct, if you engage in some conduct that brings negative attention to the school, that can be a reason to let you go. He is on paid leave right now, which I was a little frustrated about, but they're probably just trying to avoid wrongful termination and stuff like that. Yeah.
Another thing too that you mentioned that I'll
Mhm.
kind of branch off on, then we can kind of like wind things down or whatever, is when you were talking about like the parents in the documentary, Mackenzie's parents talking, and the mom, you could tell where she wasn't agreeing with something. There was also another moment where when she said that she allowed the cops to look in the phone, and you could tell that he was like, without just saying, I was like, oh, he every day reminds her of that. And it's probably like, it's your fault. You let him look at the phone and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, yeah, behind closed doors, there's a lot going on, probably arguing and blaming with the parents between each other of like, you shouldn't have let her do this. And I shouldn't, that kind of thing.
So, mom never said that she wasn't aware of what, because it's my understanding that mom was monitoring Mackenzie's social media. To me, Mackenzie uses people, my personal thoughts, because to hear her yell at her mom on the phone when her mom, because she wanted bail. She wanted her mom to pay the $50,000 to get her. And her mom was like, "We're focused on your appeal. Like, sit down." And she, like, turned on her mom. But that's a child that hasn't learned how to accept no. And nobody likes to be told no, but you need to be able to have boundaries. So if I say, "Hey mom, can you put up my bail?" And she says no, I'm not gonna attack her. It's like, "Oh, yeah, you have a good point. I don't like it still, but okay. You have a good point." And I think this was the first time that she's had to have real consequences that they couldn't save her from. Because when dad said, "Oh, when I got a call from the school, I would sweep her up out of there." I don't know that they let her feel discomfort, and discomfort's a normal part of life, and your actions have consequences. And it was very, very painful. As I mentioned, on my channel, I did do a deeper dive into just my thoughts about just for, Dom and Davion. I also have links to Davion's GoFundMe, because they collect money for people to go to barber school, and then also the link to, I think it's Sister Unhinged. I think I'm bad with names, but the Dom's sister has a podcast. So I have the link there in that prior video. But yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you again for coming and hanging out and taking time out of life and schedule and all the things that this was so I've been wanting to talk to you about both these cases. There's so much that happened with them. So this was really informative and fun as usual.
I love getting to hang out on the sofa with the sofa squad, and you have the psych nerds here. And so this has been a ton of fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, everybody, thank you for joining us. We do appreciate it. Thank you, mods. And we will close out with Slow Morrison's Ode to the Sofa. And then we'll see all of y'all next go round. So y'all have a good rest of your weekend. Thank you, Dr. Barry. I'll see y'all soon.
The pillows are fluff thanks to